So, Johnny Johnson, welcome to the show. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm great, Jack. How you doing?
Yes, really, really well, thank you. So, today we're going to be talking about you and your fantastic company, Unlimited Alcohol-Free Beer. Now, for somebody who has, I'd say, recently gone sober, myself, we're recording this around the sort of, end of September, October time, 2020. I've been sober for about 120 days, but you've been sober a bit longer. Your journey's been a bit more extended than that, hasn't it?
Well, yes. So I have drank since, so I haven't gone
Oh,
completely
sacrilege.
sober. But no, but I think when I quit drinking last year I went 112 days in total. I think on my first run, and then I had a drink, and then but now I drink on the very rare occasion, probably once every couple of months. So.
Did you have a drink when you celebrated launching Unlimited Beer?
I had an unlimited to
Yes,
celebrate.
that's what I wanted to hear. So, look, let's take it right back to the beginning. Let's sort of go back before you started the company and talk to me a little bit about sort of who you were and what you were doing and kind of life before this brilliant company was born.
Yeah, so I worked in the City of London for 7 years. I worked in a direct sales role. So I was like a visiting tailor. So I used to go to guys' offices in the city, quite successful guys like CEOs, MDs, all that sort of stuff, and sell them bespoke clothing, so suits, shirts, jackets and things. So it was a very sort of fast-paced, worked very long hours. I worked with a lot of other sort of very similar people, so all very ambitious and hungry. And it was sort of the typical city life that you can sort of imagine. It was, work hard, play hard. And so before I started the business, it was I got into a cycle of, working long hours during the week and then going out on a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday with sort of friends from back home. And then it was straight back to work Monday. And sort of the weekends were spent sort of feeling sorry for myself, a bit hungover. And that sort of went on for years, probably about 5 years. And then I just had enough. And hangovers were getting too, were awful. So yeah, and then I thought I'll give the booze a break for a bit.
Okay, so what sort of time frame are you looking at here? When was this?
So I got married in June last year, June 2019. And after my wedding night, I had like the mother of all hangovers the next day.
Can we just okay? We're talking mother of all hangovers. I love this question. Right, just describe to me in your own words what the mother of all hangovers is to you.
So it wasn't like a day's hangover. It literally lasted me 5 days. So I just felt. Do you know when? I think everyone could probably relate to this. When you wake up the next day and you obviously you feel terrible, but then you have a lot of regret, you have a lot of anxiety, you sort of feel a little bit depressed, and you sort of, you have really negative thoughts that go through your brain, and you haven't got any motivation to do anything. You eat crap food just because you want easy food and you want sugar and you want fatty stuff, and it went on for 5 days. And in my job, because it was a direct sales job, I used to go and meet people, like new people every day, and I had to sort of sell our product and be on top form. And being hungover and doing that, it's you can't really perform at your job. And so it just, yeah, I think to describe it in a nutshell, I felt very negative, sort of not depressed, but just had very negative feelings and felt bad about myself. It just wasn't a good place, basically.
And so what was that the straw that broke the camel's back? What was it about that specific hangover, just after your wedding that made you say, yeah, I need to kick this once and for all?
It was actually a mate of mine who was at the wedding, and I remember seeing him a few days after, and he said how drunk I was. And obviously it was my wedding night, right? And I didn't do anything that bad, but he sort of, him saying that made me sort of think about it. And I thought, I don't know if you remember, I remember David Hasselhoff years ago, he got videoed when he was drunk, and there was an interview and he basically reflected on it. And then I think he quit the booze. And it was one of those moments. Someone else told me sort of how drunk I was, and I just sort of felt ashamed of myself. And another thing, a friend of a friend who I used to go out with a couple of years prior, he'd given up the booze 8 months before. And I heard how much his life had changed since he gave up the booze. So I called him up and I said, look, can we meet up and have a drink, like a non-alcoholic drink? And I just want to ask you a few questions about going sober. And then I met up with him, and he'd lost like 4 stone since when I saw him before, just from not drinking. And he completely sold me on the idea. So have you seen the film Limitless?
I have, yes, with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the pill that makes him like superhuman, he feels brilliant, super switched on. This is what this guy was like that I'd met. And I love that film. And so I thought, he was saying to me, it's like the Limitless pill, going alcohol free. And I was just like, right, I'm going to do it. So from that point, he actually said, look, listen to a few podcasts, and he recommended. I think One Year No Beer was one, Andy Ramage, and listened to those. And then, and then after about 2 or 3 weeks of not drinking, felt incredible. Had so much more energy, was sleeping a lot better, exercising more, eating healthier, and I felt incredible. So it was just like a no-brainer.
It's that knock-on effect, isn't it? I mean, speaking from somebody who's also, on a sober journey, it really does take just a moment of like, you need to just have that height of all heights, but then it sends you to the lows of all lows, and just to, my story of why I gave up was after my 30th birthday last year, now September 2019. And I decided after my 30th, I had a huge 3-day extravagant bender basically with all my mates, and it was wonderful. But it really sent off my 20s in the right way, so that then when I hit my 30s, I was like, you know what, this is a good opportunity. It's almost like a new chapter, if you like. And I decided to go sober for 90 days, quit meat. So I went plant-based and decided to run my first marathon. Some could say I was having a midlife crisis, but but it really helped. And I can totally resonate with what you say about your life changes absolutely exponentially when you quit booze. Like, there's just so many, what I like to call the ripple effect. It's like that little drop in the ocean that then ripples out to other areas of your life. And it really, really does push you to be just a much better human. And you realize that you don't need it to be, who you are. If anything, it makes you a better person of who you are. So yeah, man, I totally share that view. So let's move on to Unlimited. Right. Tell me, how did it all come about?
So after 3 weeks of not drinking, obviously I had like this new lease of life, and I had a realization that I was fed up working the hours I was working, because I used to leave my home at about 5:15 in the morning, and then get home at about 8:15. So my life was literally work, go home, go to bed, go to work, weekends, go out and get drunk, not really live at the weekend, just sort of be hungover, and then back to work. So I just thought to myself, I'm not living. Or not enjoying life. So yeah, after 3 weeks of not drinking, I missed beer. So I spoke to this guy who convinced me to stop, and he said, I will try some of the alcohol-free beers off of a Dry Drinker and Wise Bartender. So I bought some alcohol-free beers, and I was really surprised by how good some of them were. Because the typical ones that you'd normally buy in bars, like the 2 big brands, I never really liked them. But some of the smaller craft alcohol-free beers were great. So I used to sort of drink those as a substitute, and obviously not get, be affected by any alcohol, because there isn't any in them. And then I just because I had so much more time and an interest in it, I just researched about alcohol-free so much, and I realised that alcohol-free beers are generally quite good for you. They're like a nutritional drink, and but no one really promoted that side of things. They were used to promote them as an alcohol-free drink, but the ingredients that you put into alcohol-free beer is like plant-based stuff. So you put your hops in, you put barley in, you put wheat in, and they're all nutrition. There's a lot of nutrition in there. And the alcohol, normally, when you make a normal beer, the alcohol rips out all the good stuff. But when the alcohol isn't produced, it keeps all the good stuff in there. So like our beer's got vitamin B12 in it. It's low calories, low carbs. So I was researching loads about alcohol-free, realised that no one was really promoting the health benefits, and I just wanted to take control of my life and start my own business. And so I didn't know anything about brewing. I just thought to myself, right, I see there's sort of a gap in the market. it's a massively growing market because more and more people are reducing their alcohol intake. So so then I started calling round. I found this master brewer who helped me develop the recipe, and then it's sort of every stage. It's like every day I generally learn about 10 new things because I've never started a business. I didn't know anything about beer, anything about branding. And then 10 months later, we launched.
I love that. I mean, first question I've got around that is how many, so this is June 2019 that you sort of were on this journey and you started launching, or you sort of started looking into non-alcoholic beers and that sort of thing, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I whether I was not looking for them or didn't know about them, but I feel like there wasn't that many on offer, and if they were very sparsely decorated around the various pubs and bars in the UK or in London where I live. So you had to almost go and find them rather than just arriving at a bar or a pub and finding, they've got a selection of, even now.
Exactly.
There is so many out there, and maybe because I am sober, I'm seeing more of them out there. But every single bar I go to, they've only still got one or two. So that's, it's still definitely a growing market. But I mean, I've got one here for those who are watching the video. You can see it. The fact that it says it's sort of alcohol-free beer, and the question I've got is what's the difference between the process of making an alcoholic beer and a non-alcoholic beer? Is it something you put in, or it's something you don't put or you take out?
Well, there's a few different ways of doing it. So the big brands that everyone probably sees in the pubs and bars, from my understanding, that they will brew normal beer and then they sort of boil it off at the end and it boils off the alcohol. But it can give it to me, it gives it a bit of like a burnt taste. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of places do that. There's another way of doing it. It's called vacuum distillation, where they basically extract the alcohol, which is a good way of doing it, but it's quite an expensive way. And the way that we do it, we actually brew it in a way where the alcohol never exceeds 0.5%. Mm-hmm. So 0.5%, obviously it's still alcohol, but a lot of people, when I first gave up, I said to this guy, I was like, I don't want to drink these beers because they've got 0.5% in. And he was like, but that's the same as a glass of orange or the same as a banana. But you don't realise that. Yeah. So
bananas are alcoholic. I love that.
Yeah,
so I could get pissed on eating all the bananas in the world. I might try that.
But he like if you go to a nice burger restaurant in London, like one of the sort of the bigger burger chains, some burger buns have 1.2% in alcohol.
because they're beer battered or because they're
well, could they have yeast in them?
Of course, yeah. That's so funny.
So I think a lot of people, when they first quit drinking, they're a bit wary of the 0.5s, but we obviously have to say 0.5 on there just because legally we have to. But it actually, you can't get drunk on 0.5 because your body processes it as quickly as you drink it because it's such a small amount. Yeah. But yeah, if people eat bananas, then they can drink 0.5% beer.
Interesting.
What was your question again? I went off track a bit.
No, that was answering it. It was how the beer is produced different to normal beers. Is there something taken in or taken out? But yeah, you explained that there's many different ways of doing it, but ultimately it produces this wonderful beer. Now, the one thing I love about this beer, is when it's a hot day, and just for transparency, Johnny and I got in touch because Johnny messaged me on Instagram and said, "Hey mate, I've just launched this new alcohol-free beer company. Can I send you some samples?" And of course I said yes. And he sends them over, and I absolutely fell in love with them. And they're 23 calories, which first of all is about a third of the other non-alcoholic beers that I've tried. There's a lot of them out there, and it's about a third of the calories. So anyone that's kind of health conscious or that is training or girls particularly who maybe don't want to and maybe look for the low calorie option, definitely a good option for you. But also the branding. Now, you've just won a couple of awards, right, for your branding?
Yeah, we got 3. We got 2 golds and a silver at the Well Beer Awards. So Amazing. We got bottle design, label design, and new launch.
How do you feel about that?
I'm really pleased. Oh, I was. So we sent our samples back in March because obviously that's when the beer was ready, but we didn't launch until June. So we sent it ages ago, and I've always wanted to win one of those awards because they're like an industry standard. It's I think my main competitor when I started, Big Drop. They're brilliant, and they were the beer that I really loved. And I saw that they had these awards, so I thought, well, I'm going to enter and see what we get. And yeah, so we won 2 gold and a silver. So I was well chuffed.
Mate, that's amazing. And it just, as you said, it's a stamp of approval in the industry. It shows that you've got a seat at the table and you're now starting to produce a quality beer that people can recognize. So we've also got, you've mentioned to me before, but you've also got plans for extending the range. What else have you got in the pipeline?
Yeah, so we've been developing the IPA for a few months now. So when we launched in June, we just had the lager and we were developing the IPA then. I was hoping to launch the IPA already by now, but I haven't been happy. Obviously, I want it to be the best it can be, right? And it's not, every time that we've had a tasting, so the brewer's been working on it with me. Every time that we've had a tasting, it's just not been quite there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to just release like a substandard product. So, but I had a tasting last week and I really liked it. So I think, ideally, I want to launch it before the end of the year. So okay. So there's the IPA, but there's big plans. Obviously there's so many different beer varieties that you can release. So, but I want to do a cider for next summer. I'll do a stout at some point, obviously, because that's sort of a good wintry drink. So
fantastic.
Lots in the pipeline.
And in terms of when you do these tastings, is it your decisions final, or do you get your wife and friends and other people to come in and sort of give you a bit of a spectrum of taste buds?
So it's difficult, right? Because when you get your friends and your family, like if I go to my mum will be like, "Oh, it's brilliant, I love it," but it might not be.
You can always count on mum's vote.
It's my mum. But for me, this is what I said to the brewer when we started this process last year: is that if I like it, then if I like it, then I'm just confident it will sell well, or other people will like it. If I don't like it, then I've got to love it as the owner of the brand to make sure that it's a good product. So, but no, I have got a couple of people that I will get to taste it before we release it.
Absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, you got to back yourself. If you're going to start a brand, start a company, there is going to be some people that love it, some people that don't, some people that get it, other people that don't. You can't please everyone. And actually, if you try and please everyone, you end up pleasing nobody. So, doing what you're doing, and if you think it's a good taste, then you're going to be able to sell that product much better because you've got the passion and the authenticity behind it to be able to just go to every single person you meet, just like you did in your old days with selling suits in the City of London. You can now go to the multitude of bars and restaurants around the country and the world, hopefully, then go, look, this beer is the dog's bollocks and it is the best thing you should have on your shelf. Look, I mean, I've been drinking your beer ever since you sent me that sample, and I love the stuff. And for me, it's having that alternative in the house that makes not drinking easier. I think that you go through waves, as I'm sure you can, relate to this. You go through waves when you stop drinking, because you kind of have the social aspect, people expecting you to have a drink wherever you go. Then you have the kind of the cravings, and the cravings are real, man. Like I've never eaten so many biscuits in my life. So the sugar cravings are real, but you have that also, that feeling, that Friday feeling. And it's weird. You get to like Thursday night, Friday night, and you're like, finish your day, close your laptop, like, oh, I fancy a glass of wine or a drink. And you're like, the feeling's there. If you go to the fridge and you've got, an unlimited in there and it's cold, all it takes is a couple of sips of that, and that feeling of wanting a real drink, a real alcoholic drink or a real glass of wine goes completely. And it's brilliant because I can have one of them on a Monday afternoon with my lunch, and it's not going to affect my work. Whereas, I remember back in the day when, when I used to work in an office, sometimes we go for a client lunch on a Tuesday afternoon, and 2 pints in, and I couldn't work in the afternoon. I couldn't do anything. You're sluggish and it's pointless. And what was the point? Like nobody, you may have got yourself a bit of a extra business deal, but then you're unproductive for the rest of the day. So no, man, I think you've done an amazing job with this, and especially the branding, the fact that it is eye-catching. And I've taken these to mates, for a drink or to the park or whatever, and every single person said, oh, what are you drinking there? Because they haven't seen the bottle before, or they want it, they're interested in it, and they've tried it and they're like, oh, that's actually really nice. So it's just going to take some time to sort of like catch on and hopefully become the biggest non-alcoholic beer brand going. That's what the aim is.
Well, that's one of the things. So when I stopped drinking, in that first sort of 3-week period, I went out for work drinks with people at work, and I used to drink cranberry juice, right? Because that's just sort of what your brain goes to. You think, I'll have a cranberry juice or I'll have a soda. And but then everyone just picked, because I was like I used to be like the life and soul of, the one that's getting the shots in and stuff like that. And but then when you hold like a cranberry juice in a glass, people are like, why are you not drinking? And then you get all this attention, negative attention. But then if you picked up, say, like, one of the big brands, and they're quite an obvious bottle that they're an alcohol free, everyone knows them as an alcohol free drink, so you still get stick. So I wanted, the reason I started this as well is that because there wasn't a good option of alcohol free in most bars and pubs, I thought, I'm going to start this brand and get it into as many bars and pubs as possible, because I want a good tasting just for myself, right? I'm just getting it into bars because I want to drink something better.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to drink something that looked cool, because, I won't say, let's just call it Dex Blue, but it's, people notice when you drink that, and you can get a lot of negative feedback. Whereas I don't know if it's just a perception of alcohol free, and then that's changing a lot, and it has changed a lot in the last year. But drinking something like Unlimited, just because to me, it just looks a bit cooler, it looks a bit sexier. That was sort of a big reason why I branded it the way that we did.
Yeah, look, as you said, it's the shift is happening. If you look back at history, doctors used to promote cigarettes, right? You look at adverts from back in the 50s and 60s, and there were doctors smoking Camels. Right now, we fast forward, and in a way, vaping has kind of become what like the alcohol-free beer has to the beer kind of thing, where it's like, well, it's still drinking a beer, but it's not as bad for you. But the thing is with alcohol-free beer is that there is only positives about it. There is nothing bad in it, as you said before, with all the ingredients. But it's also this like plant-based movement that's happening over the last few years. People are realizing that meat actually isn't that great for you. Besides the point of the ethical reasons and the saving the planet and all that sort of stuff, but meat actually isn't that good for you. So, switching to something that is not just tasty, but also better for you going forward, and also allows you to actually function as a human being after having 2 or 3 of them. It's just the way forward. One thing I wanted to touch on was obviously other drinks brands that are kind of leading this space, and one that comes to mind is Seedlip, right? And I actually went to a talk with I think Ben Branson, I think the name's the guy that owns it, and he was saying that Diageo, which is one of the biggest drinks or biggest spirit conglomerates in the world, bought Seedlip and it was one of their biggest non-alcoholic purchases of their entire history. And that in itself says a lot about kind of, if the world's biggest drinks brand is buying non-alcoholic, spirits, then what does that look like for you in the beer market? Who are the big players? Who are the ones that, you could see if you were to maybe sort of sell to a big competitor or go join up with somebody else? Who would you see yourself kind of like partnering with or getting to the stage of being with?
That's a good question. So Heineken, from what I've discovered, Heineken own virtually everyone. So, most beer brands are owned by Heineken, and they're all brewed at the same place. And so they're obviously, I think they're the big boys in the market. And I have a lot of people ask me, are you going to just brew an alcoholic version as well? And I wanted to keep this as an alcohol-free brand because I wanted to promote, the alcohol-free benefits, and going alcohol-free is good for people, because you hear a lot of, in the last few years, you've probably heard it as well. There's a lot of talk around anxiety, and people are anxious and stressed. And I honestly put it down to alcohol, like the majority of that sort of stuff, because, I was just a normal drinker like everyone else in London, of my sort of age. We sort of grew up in the booze Britain culture. So I used to go to the pub when I was like 17. And then, we've always drank. It's just part of the way of our society. And I think when people stop drinking, obviously it's weird for everyone else. So that's why there's this sort of negativity towards it. But like you say, it's changing massively. So, so sort of going back to your question, I'm, ideally, I don't really know how I sort of see the future if I'd sell to a big brand who are an alcoholic-based brand. Because, I do drink on the very odd occasion an alcoholic drink. So I'm not against it. But I just want to, I don't know. We'll leave that one we'll leave that one to sort of see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah, we can revisit this on another show in some time in the future.
Yeah.
The one question I had personally, as well as also I'm sure a few other people might be thinking this is, right, you go into a restaurant, go into a bar, and you see a pint of Foster's, and then you see a pint of non-alcoholic beer. Price point wise, they're fairly similar. Now, for the uneducated person in this market, you'd probably assume that an alcoholic beverage should be more than a non-alcoholic beverage. Why are they sort of similar priced? Is it that they cost the same to produce, or is it that it's just a marketing thing, or is it, what, in your opinion, what myth can we debunk here?
So I've always thought that as well, because I've gone into pubs and bought an alcohol-free beer, and it's been the same price. And I've always wondered why that is, because alcohol has duty that they have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an extra cost against all the other alcohol-free drinks. Brewing alcohol-free beer is the exact same process. So it's still, for a brand like mine, we're at, I'd say, the higher end of the alcohol-free in terms of pricing. But as a new startup, we're not producing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bottles each time. So, as you grow, and, the quantities that you order of bottles and labels and caps and brew sizes, the bigger quantities that you get, obviously the price drives it down. So some of the big brands are obviously a lot cheaper than the smaller craft alcohol-free breweries. But I think, as we grow, I don't want to sort of price ourselves out of the market. But I think also from a bar's standpoint, I don't know, I wonder if they sort of worry that if people drink less, that they're going to sort of, their business is going to perform worse.
Absolutely.
Because when you're drunk, I know when I used to drink, I'd have 5 pints, and then it'll be like shots, and then it'll be shorts, and it'll be all sorts of things. Whereas I would go to the pub now and have 2 or 3 alcohol-free beers and go home. So my spend at bars has obviously decreased a lot. So maybe that's the reason why they keep them at the same sort of price.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because there's a bar in London, in Old Street, the Brewdog, alcohol-free only bar, and they do free unlimited refills of their own brand.
Yeah.
So if you go in there and order a non-alcoholic free version of their beer, you can go back as many times as you want and get a refill for free. So your drinking all night will cost you £5 or whatever it is. So that is a complete opposite of what we just said there, where but then saying that it's a non-alcoholic free bar. They do have like alcohol drinks on the menu, but it's 10% versus 90% on the other side. So as a business model, what do you think their aim is there? What do you think their purpose of doing that is?
So it's brilliant that they do that, because but the reality is, you're not gonna. If I was going out on a night out just drinking alcohol, could easily, on a big night, you could probably have sort of 5 to 10 pints, because the more you drink, you just keep drinking. But with alcohol-free beer, I think after about 2 bottles of mine, or 3 pints at the most, it's like drinking 3 pints of lemonade. You sort of get to a point I don't really want anymore, because alcohol makes you lose your inhibitions and you just keep drinking. Well, that's how what used to happen to me. But with alcohol free, I think you can, you stop, or you don't drink it as quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know the science behind it. There's obviously something in it with what alcohol affects your brain and makes you, want more. But maybe, I don't know why. Obviously, it's a bit of a PR launch for the bar as well, because it will obviously get people going there. So, but it's brilliant that they do that.
So let's just draw. I mean, we've been talking a lot about kind of the positives about what's been happening and kind of how you got to where you are. But I want to ask you about your challenges. Let's talk about what are the biggest challenges that you faced throughout this entire process, from starting the brand through to today.
Oh, so many. So, like I said, I went into this sort of completely blind and as a complete rookie. So it's everything that at every stage, there's obviously, when you first start, you have to, you find an accountant, and then I found a branding guide who helped me sort of design all the brand and the logos and everything. And then there's the sort of the legal side, so the trademarking of it. So I guess the biggest challenge is, it's the way that I look at it is that if someone else has done it, then it's not impossible to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard, and there's been a lot of challenges and a lot of sort of hiccups along the way, but you get through it. It's just bumps in the road, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of what's exciting about it, because you only get better. From where I am now to where I was a year ago, it's like my life completely changed, just because obviously I gave up. Well, I've reduced my alcohol massively, but I've learned so much. So the challenges with starting it, there's sort of so many. I can't even really think off the top of my head, but it's nothing that you can't overcome.
So
that's why I look at it.
If you were to go back today and sort of reverse time and go back to a point where you kind of know everything you know now and you were starting again, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I probably would be, because like say, with the brewer, there's been quite a lot of delays just for various reasons, and I'm not shifting blame on anyone, but I don't think I'd necessarily change anything. I just think it's just the process.
Yeah.
I think it's just anything that, if I was to start it again, I'd probably come up with the same problems, and it's just a part of setting up a business. So, I wouldn't change anything, I think.
It's good. It shows that you've done everything that you wanted to do the way you wanted to do it. And I think actually, if you had things that you'd done differently, you might not be in the position you're in. You might have, maybe failed or gone down a different route, or it might not be exactly how you want it to be. So yeah, it's good that you've got that positive reflection outlook on what's happened. So look, looking forward and looking at kind of where you want to take this brand, like what are the biggest challenges you're facing right now, kind of moving forward? What are the things that you're looking at and going, sure, that needs to happen, this needs to happen, but I don't know how to get it happening?
So we launched in the middle of the COVID lockdown in June.
Wonderful timing.
Yeah. So obviously when I came up with this idea, it was sort of last June, July last year. And then I'd spent a lot of money up until March, and we were sort of ready with the product by March, but we were just building the website and doing a sort of few more things in the background. And then obviously COVID hit, and I didn't really panic, because I knew that there's so many aspects of growing the business. There's obviously the online presence and social media, and then there's obviously going out to bars, restaurants, pubs, etc. And before we launched and before COVID came around, I was worrying about how I was going to juggle the two. And when COVID came around, it's sort of like, it just made me focus online. So just building the social media presence, building that sort of plan. And then I sort of could forget about bars and restaurants because they were closed. So the issue, so that was good, because I think I built it quite well online, and all of our sales initially would have just come through social media promotion and all that sort of stuff. Now bars have reopened, and hopefully they stay open. My challenge now is to get into as many bars, restaurants and pubs, because that was my mission to start with. And it's different because it's not obviously you can go into bars and pubs, but where I live in Hertford, you normally have to book before you can go there, even if you just want to pop in for a pint. So it's not as easy as going in and meeting the bar staff and chatting to them. So what I've been doing in the last couple of weeks is sort of reaching out to different bar groups in London. I've got one bar group who are very keen to have it on tap. So we're sort of finalising the deal at the moment, which is exciting, but it could be on tap in 10 pubs in London. So that's sort of that's what's going on now with the brand.
That's one thing I tell you I've missed actually about not drinking, is the fact that when you really want just a cold beer, there's nothing better than having it out of a tap and a glass at a pub. Yeah. And that's the one that there's a few far and few between kind of bars that do. I think Lucky Saint's one that do a lot by tap, and I think, I'm not sure if Big Drop do, but I haven't seen many. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you guys start doing that, man, you got to tell me where those pubs are, because they'll become my locals.
I will.
They'll become my locals. So question for you, Johnny, is what what drives you to do this? You know, you've mentioned before that you want to obviously create more of a healthier lifestyle for people that are wanting to still drink beer but not have the after effects of the hangover and the alcohol content, but also having a company that leaves a legacy and has a sort of longevity to it. But like, what drives you to actually keep going with this? What's there for you?
So I think it was, going back to what I said a little while ago about working long hours in the city for someone else and not really having much of a life. When obviously I got married last year, so I had a new wife, and then 3 weeks after I stopped drinking, she fell pregnant. So obviously this all came around at the same time. So she told me she was pregnant. I was coming up with this business idea, and I guess I just wanted to sort of be in charge of my own destiny and not be a slave to, another business. That I loved my whole job, but I wanted to be more in control of what I was doing and more in control of my time. Now we've got our little girl, Rosie, who was born in born in May. I don't, if I was still working at my previous job, I wouldn't see her literally until the weekends, because she goes to bed at 7. I normally just get in at 8. So, I wanted to do this so that I could have more time doing things that I want to do and living a life that I want to live. This is it's a little bit deep, but back in 2015, my dad passed away suddenly. And he was 57 at the time. And he had his own business, and he was sort of semi-retired, so to say, but he wasn't sort of fully retired, but his life got cut short in an accident. And that for me was like a massive wake-up call, because it made me sort of think, he's worked all of his life, and then as he got to near retirement, he died, and he couldn't enjoy what he'd sort of built over the previous 20, 30 years. So I think that for me, it like I said, it was a bit of a wake-up call, and I thought to myself, life's short, anything can happen. People will say, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow and all that sort of stuff. And I thought to myself, if I don't want to work until I'm 65 or until retirement age, and then potentially, die. I know it sounds really negative, but, so I want to be more in control of my life now, set up a business that I'm in control of, and that will give me more time to spend with my family, because there's nothing more important than your family and your friends, right? And, I think that's probably the biggest driving force behind this anyway.
Man, thanks for sharing, man. That's, it does sometimes take those hard hitting moments in life, whether it be personal or like a global thing, to kind of realize actually where you are. I mean, your dad passing was a realization for you that you needed to make the most out of what you had in your life and actually live it to its fullest. And to on a global scale, the COVID and the whole pandemic that's happened at the moment has caused a lot of people to rethink what they're doing with their lives. Has made them slow down, which I absolutely love. There's a quote by a guy who I follow, who's I suppose a bit of an online mentor to me. His name's Rich Litvin, and he has this expression that's slow down to speed up. Sometimes we are so blinkered in what we're doing in life that we actually forget about everything else that's going on around us, and 10, 15, 20 years passes before we realize, oh shit, well, okay, my kid's now this age and my wife's there, and I haven't seen my mates for 20 years, whatever it might be. And that's sad, because ultimately when the work stops and you kind of retire, you really only have your friends and family to kind of like rely on to keep you young and keep you living the life you live. So, man, I think you've done the right thing, and I think it's an awesome venture that you're on, and I'm super glad you've produced such an amazing beer, because it's definitely it's always in my fridge, which is good.
Right.
Wanted to ask you, kind of people listening, maybe in a position where they're like, what, I'm fed up with my job. I'm fed up with doing what I'm doing at the moment. I want to start my own thing, whether it be a non-alcoholic beer or whether it be something else. What sort of advice would you give to people that wanted to just sack it all in and start doing something themselves?
Do it. That's like, that is so there's a few of my friends, obviously they're very interested in what I'm doing. And a lot of people say to me, they go, oh, I'd love to do something like this, set up my own business. I'm like, do it. Because I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted to set up my own business. I remember when I was 16, I said to my dad, I was just like, when I'm older, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to run a good business. And he was just like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. And it sort of drives me, because my dad always really pushed me. I always said, I was going to be, have this amazing business, and he was just like, it's never going to be that easy to do that. But that lit a fire in me to actually do it. But then obviously, I started work when I was 17, and then I started this business this year, and I'm 32 now. So, it took me a good 12, 13 years to actually take the plunge. But obviously setting up a business, there's all different things that are involved. You need some money behind you, and not all the time, but with this brand, I needed some. So, all the money that I'd saved, previously from my old job, I've used in the business. But yeah, if people are thinking about or wanting to start up their own venture or business, I'd say just find what you're really passionate about. Like for me, because I'd realised that going alcohol free made me such a better person, and I felt so good compared to how I'd felt for the last 10, 12 years. It was like, to me, it was just like a light bulb moment. It's just like, I've got to promote this and sing it from the hilltops to everyone. So I got really passionate about it. And I think a lot of people do, when they do go alcohol free for a short period, they become very evangelical about it.
Yes, they do. Any
I
of my
remember
mates.
my mum. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
funny.
they do. So for like family and friends, they sort of say you're a bit evangelical about it, and I'm like, yeah, but trust me, it's like you feel so much better. And it's funny. I saw my mum a couple of weeks ago, and one of her friends had stopped drinking. One of her friends sadly has got cancer, so she stopped drinking. And my mum said after about 3 or 4 weeks, she started singing it from the hilltops about how good it was. And she goes, it was just like you was last year. And I'm like, this. It's obviously it's the truth, because so many people in the way in our society have been brought up that drinking is just a part of culture and a part of life.
Yeah.
And at the end of a long day at work or at the weekend, you have a glass of wine or you have a beer. And a lot of people say to me, they're like, but they go, what do you do when at the end of a long week and you just want to sit down, you have that first sip of beer and you just feel relaxed? And I'm like, it's not the alcohol that makes you relax, because alcohol does not make you relax in like 5 seconds. And then, so this is how this guy described it to me once. So I know sort of I'm going off on a tangent.
No, carry on.
He said, because I said this to him about when I was inquiring about not drinking. I said, what about the beer on a Friday after a long week? And he was like, it's not the beer, it's just the flavour. So because if you can find a substitute, so with alcohol-free beers now, because to me, a lot of them taste like normal beer, I'll have a sip of one and I'll have that relaxed feeling. And then when people actually think about it, they're like, actually, yeah, it can't be the alcohol that makes you sort of have that relaxed. It's just the flavour. It's the flavour of the beer, the fizziness. Mm-hmm. Wine, on the other hand, alcohol-free wine at the moment is like crap. There isn't any good ones.
I've said whoever gets that right is going to make a lot of money, especially red wine, because it's basically, I mean, there is a white wine I've tried that I mean, it's all right. It's not, I wouldn't choose it. The red wines I've tried though, apparently are just nasty. There's one at Waitrose. Waitrose do a grape juice that apparently is like red wine, but it's not labeled as red wine. It's labeled as grape juice, and apparently looks the same and tastes actually pretty good. So if anybody's listening that wants to have a dinner party and wants to join in with the winos, get some Waitrose grape juice in it, and it's apparently the way to go forward. But yeah, look, you're absolutely right. That feeling, it's all about triggers. I've grown up with mates who drink and smoke and go out and have a good time, and I ask people who don't smoke on a regular basis, why do you smoke when you have a drink? And it's that whole trigger, isn't it? It's that response of conditioning your brain. It's like, right, I'm in a pub, or I'm at a friend's house, or I'm in the park, I've got a drink in hand. What's my other hand doing? I need a cigarette. It's the same with drinking. It's that response thing we were talking about earlier. You get to Thursday night, you get to Friday night, you kind of get that Friday feeling. You feel yourself kind of getting excited. Your brain is sending like a dopamine hit already to your stomach to go like, yeah, I'm ready for some alcohol to come to me. I'm ready for the weekend kind of thing. And so you almost expect it. So people that, and I listened to actually another podcast on this, people that do 30 days sober. I mean, tomorrow, we're recording this on the 30th September, but tomorrow is going to be Stop October or Stocktober, whatever it's called. And people will go sober for 30 days or 31 days. Great. Good for them. But I believe, and I'm sure you can resonate with this, it takes longer than that to actually get the benefits of not drinking, because your body takes a while to not just adjust to it. Yes, you'll feel great after probably 2 to 3 weeks, but actually to condition your mind not to want the booze after that time period, it takes, in my opinion, it takes about 65 to 70 days. And at that point is when you become somebody who can say no to an alcoholic drink without that feeling of anxiety and regret and sort of like, oh, but I want one, but I'm going to say no. And it's that battle that goes on in your body. I think after that point, you almost forget what the taste is like. You forget what the effects are like. And, you know, as a sideline, if you are somebody who wants to potentially stop drinking and try some alternatives, you know, get a case of Unlimited, stick them in your fridge, you know, and tell people that you're going sober for a period. You know, it was one of the hardest things I had to do. I've got a boys group that I you know, have banter with about the football and all sorts, about 16 of them on the group. And it was the first time since I'd stopped drinking that I was going to go and hang out with them at the park. And I had to say to them, guys, I'm not drinking, like in preparation, because I knew if I got there and said it, I'd get shit in the air, left, right, and center. And I said it to them. It took me about 4 days to write this message. But once I'd said it to, no, seriously, because I was like, how are they going to take it? I can't be like the wimp. I can't be like, oh, I'm not drinking. I had to say it in a way that was like sort of forceful, but also like just kind of respect the fact I'm not drinking. And lo and behold, I got like most of the guys rose back and said, mate, wicked, good for you. Like fair play, you know, or I wish I could do that or whatever it might be. And one or two were like, oh yeah, I'm sure you'll last 2 weeks or whatever. But it's all in jest and all in banter. And, you know, that actually helped me more so because I was like, I had the support of other people, not having the pressures of when I got to the place where everyone else was drinking. I had to then conform to what society says. And you're absolutely right. I think the more beers that are available to you that are non-alcoholic, that are like that have that, you know, the availability, it will cause people to think differently about their drinking choices. And, you know, the likes of yourself and Big Drop and Lucky Saint and all the other beer brands that are doing exactly what you're doing, it's just a matter of time before they're in the bars and they're and there's a list on its own of non-alcoholic versions rather than just the beers themselves. And I can't wait for that time. It's going to be great.
Yeah. No, I think it's the growth of alcohol-free, the alcohol-free market in as a whole is growing massively. I think last year it grew like 60% compared to what it was in 2018. And, you know, the younger generation, so like 18 to 24-year-olds, I think 1 in 4 don't drink now. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so many sort of celebrities and sports stars who don't drink. And, you know, for I'm like you, I've got a group of mates who, you know, I used to go out with all the time and, you know, we get boozy. And so when I stopped, you know, you get a lot of stick for it. But then when they saw, you know, instead of on a Saturday and Sunday not really doing much, like during lockdown, I built decking in our garden and I've done all sorts of stuff around the house. And they're like, have you got so much time? Like, you've just launched the business. I'm like, I've got so much time because I'm never hungover or I'm never affected by booze. So, you know, I'll get up at 5 a.m. and I'll do 4 hours of work and then I'll go and build some decking. and they're just like, how do you, like one of my best mates, he runs a butcher shop. He's like, have you got any time to do this? And I was like, look, it's just not, honestly, it's the, from not drinking, you just got so much more energy to do stuff.
That's it.
And find it's like you just, you know, I always used to say that I'm like, there's not enough time in the day when I was working in my previous job because it was literally work, sleep. But when I did quit the booze and I was still working there, the amount of stuff that I got done at work was so much more. And then at the weekend, a clean freak, just because I used to get up and I used to just like, right, I want to clean something. I just wanted to do stuff. Whereas normally I'd, you know, sit on the sofa, have a cup of coffee.
You're absolutely right. It's having, I like to think of it as you when you give up booze, you find that you have more time, more money, and more energy. And, you know, time is something that it's the most valuable commodity that we own. We don't ever get any more of it. And, you know, we all spend it in a very, very fleeting way. You know, I read a book recently called Essentialism by a guy called Greg McKeown. And it talks about how, you know, this sort of concept of having only a certain amount of energy to give to any one thing. It's a little bit like Mark Manson's, you know, give a fuck about anything. I've forgotten the name of the book now. It's the, you know, but it's like, you've only got a certain amount of fucks to give in life, right? So give them out accordingly to the right things. But he says, you know, if you're gonna do something that's going to take away your time, i.e. going to the pub and drinking, yes, you're spending time with your friends, but the negative compound interest that you're going to gain from, or you're going to lose from having that drinks, is the fact that you're going to be sluggish later on. You're probably going to sleep badly. You're probably going to get up later. You're not going to have any energy when you wake up because you've slept badly. You're also going to have a dent in your bank account that you probably didn't need, when you could have just gone to the pub or the bar or wherever you're seeing your friends and had a soft drink, a non-alcoholic beer or whatever, because the purpose of the exercise isn't to go and drink, it's to go and see your friends. And I think that's the thing that people aren't getting. The other thing as well on the money side of things, look, global pandemic has affected the world massively. It's probably the biggest global economy breakdown we've ever going to have in our lifetime. And yet people I saw over lockdown spending it on, oh, great, well, what am I going to do? Sit around and drink booze? I'm like, yeah, fine, if that's what really makes you happy, but that's an expensive, you're going to sit there and just be loading up shitloads of calories, and not, when you drink, you don't want to move, you just want to sit there and do nothing. I just think it's a complete waste of energy and time when you could be spending it doing other things. And I personally think that this time is going to create a lot of amazing businesses out of the lockdown periods. There's lots of people that I follow on Instagram and social media that have written books in the time, have started businesses in the time, have, created and reinvented themselves in their time. I've taken my coaching business from something that I was doing kind of on the side of my modeling and acting and presenting to now being full time. And I've got, multiple clients. I've got some clients in America, like my business has grown exponentially. I put a lot of it down to the fact that I've given up drinking. I think as with you, it gives you the just the extra bit of energy, focus, concentration that you need to just succeed as a human, to be that extra bit better. And it's one small change that has like a huge difference, makes a huge shift on your life. And I think that everybody should give it a go for at least, I think 90 days is a really good amount of time to give up booze for, because as we said before, you will see not just the benefits of your health, your bank account, your energy, but also you'll be able to see what effects it has on other areas of your life, whether it be your family, business, gym, whatever it might be. I definitely challenge people to do a 90-day sobriety and see what it gives them.
I completely agree, because the guy that convinced me to stop drinking, he said do 90 days. So there's a group called 1 Year No Beer, and they do like a 28, 90 day and a 365 day challenge. And yeah, 90 days, it's a long enough period where, with 28 days, I didn't crack under the whole time. So it was the first time I'd given up, and I was so sort of determined to do it that I've managed to do it. But I think a lot of people do struggle, and that they might fall off the wagon after a couple of weeks and have a beer, and then they sort of set themselves back to square one. And I think that if that happens, that's okay, because it's a lot of people are put under a lot of pressure in social settings by it. So it's not an issue if you do you break your streak, if you like. But I think definitely 90 days is the perfect amount of time, because when I hit 90 days, at the start, I said, right, when I get to 90 days, I'm going to have a beer. But then I got to 90 days, and I'm like, I'm not having a beer. I got to 112 days, and then I was sort of inquisitive by it. I had a beer, and it was really strange, because the first sip of an alcoholic beer, I really didn't like the taste. It was like, because I was so used to alcohol-free beers. When you drink alcohol's got a taste to it, right? And drinking this beer, it was like when you sort of spray it, it will get aerosol in your mouth. And it was just like, that really horrible taste. And then after a couple of pints, you sort of get used to it. But the next day after having that drink, I completely regretted doing it, because I was sort of thinking. But then I didn't dwell on it too much, because my habit, the way that I used to think about drinking had completely changed because of that 90 days.
That's it. That's it. The perception on not drinking versus somebody, so like if somebody's listening who has drank for most of their adult life and has never done a period of sobriety and is thinking this conversation's a load of trash, I think give it a go before you say something, right? I was one of those people who thought, I could never go sober. And it wasn't from a place of, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I just think I never had the ability to actually do it. It takes a lot of willpower, especially in today's society, especially in a culture like Britain, where we have a drinking culture that is far too you know, publicized, if that's the right word to use, then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, I mean, look at what we're doing in the government at the moment. We're closing everything. People can't leave their homes and go to other people's homes, but what can you do? You can go to the pub. What kind of message is that sending? Like, I just don't think it's the right, you know. And the reason for it, as we were saying before, is because of taxes and the duty on stuff, and they need to make the money because of the economy. So look, besides the point, you know, if somebody wants to, you know, have a whinge at someone for going sober, or wants to know what the benefits are or why they're doing it, do it yourself. Do it yourself and see what you can feel from it, you know. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then you can go back to alcohol having a better perspective of like, well, that's what it was like to not drink, and this is what it's like to drink. You probably will have a better relationship with alcohol because you'll know what the benefits are of. And it's okay to drink. Of course it is. But I think that the people that need to potentially go sober are the ones that always whinge at you at the pub when you're not actually drinking. And I'm sure you found
And
that.
if you think about it, and I've thought about this loads, and I've had so many conversations over the last year about this sort of thing. But you know, there is such a lot of negativity about going alcohol free, and you get a lot of stick for it, and people really judge you. And if you think about it, it's like, why? Because I'm still here. So my best mate, he said to me initially, he's just like, "Oh, just have a beer with me, just have a beer with me." And I'm like, I'm literally sitting here in front of you having a beer with you. Just mine hasn't got alcohol in it. So what is different? We're still having the same conversation. You're making a negative conversation because I haven't got this alcohol in my drink. But if there was alcohol in there, why does it doesn't make me any more different unless I have like 5 to 10 pints, and then I'm probably a twat. So I'm probably not a fun person to be around. So it literally makes, in my mind, makes no sense why people sort of have a negative connotation towards alcohol free.
Yeah.
Because in the reality, for most people, they will, if they go and get drunk on a weekend, which is sort of, or they'll go out for drinks on a weekend, that's sort of like how society does it. But from Monday to Friday, they're sober, and that's how they live their life. So why are people judging someone for one night of the week when the rest of the week they're doing what they're still doing now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that inbuilt insecurity. I found that the people that respect you for it are the ones that are absolutely fine with the fact that they're there. They like the fact that you're there, regardless of whether you're drinking wine, beer, or tequila, whatever it is. It's the people that sort of like, why are you doing it though? But like, sure, just have a drink. Oh, go on, just have one more drink, or just have a drink. Go on, stop being a dick, or whatever. Like, they're the ones that are inside going like, why are they not having a drink? Why can't I be that person that doesn't have a drink?
Yeah.
And it's this insecure person, and it's usually those are the ones that either drink the most, or the ones that have the real issue with it. And I think that those, if somebody's listening and thinks that's me, maybe they don't because they can't see it, but those I'd implore those people to just give sobriety a go for a little bit. And it may sound like we're preaching here, but there is definitely an element of being able to say you've done something through practice rather than just through hearing it through someone else's experiences. I've not yet seen a negative to stop drinking so far. I'm sort of coming up to my 6-month point, and I have yet to see anything. The only things that have happened to me are positive. And as I said at the beginning, the ripple effect that it has on you, it just compounds over and over and over again. And I look back and think, well, if I had been drinking, would I have achieved all the things I've achieved in the last, say, 120 days? Maybe not, but it's definitely it's almost like a badge of honor you wear inside. You're like, I've got the willpower, the discipline, and the self-respect to actually just treat myself the way I want to be treated and not be full victim to society and what my mates are doing. And if your mates really, really push you to have a drink, you've probably got to ask the question, are they your real friends?
Yeah. And so for the difference with me, obviously it's great you've done like 120 days, and I did 112, but then I've drank probably 4 or 5 times in the last year.
Yeah.
And so my message, people have always asked me, like, are you sort of promoting or trying to convince people to stop drinking completely? And that's completely not the message for me, because I found that I was in the hamster wheel of just doing the same thing each week in, week out. But I still like beer. So I've sort of produced this unlimited brand so I can enjoy beer. And then, if there's events like like a birthday party or a big party or a wedding, and I want to get a little bit drunk, I want to get a bit tipsy, then I will do. But that'll be once every 3 months as opposed to every weekend.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
it's the moderation. Absolutely.
yeah.
And as you said, you can only understand that moderation when you've done a period of sobriety.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
it.
definitely.
Johnny, this has been amazing, insightful, fantastic. I've loved chatting to you, man. This has been really, really cool hearing the story of your journey and the birth of Unlimited Beer. First of all, where can people find the beer itself? Where can people buy it right now?
So they can buy it directly from the website. So that's www.unlimited.beer. So that's UNLTD.beer. And we're on social media, so like Instagram, Facebook. Again, unlimited.beer is the handles. We're on Wise Bartender. There's probably about 8 or 9 of the alcohol-free websites that have got it now. So yeah, they can get it from there. Hopefully they'll see us in bars and pubs very soon.
Absolutely.
And maybe in retailers as well at some point. So
fantastic. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you personally about your journey and maybe ask you some advice about what you're doing and kind of or even if a potential supplier is listening and wants to get in touch with you via that, how's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably either through Instagram or on my email. So my email is johnny@unlimited.beer. So JOHNNY.
Good stuff. Mate,
thanks for having me on, Jack.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Look, and I'm sure we're going to see this brand go from strength to strength. And when your new IPAs and the stouts and everything start coming out in the future, we'll have to get you back on to see where your progress is taking you and where everything is going from there. So, man, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. Look forward to speaking to you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jack.
Take care.